Anna had held her green card for exactly 5 years. On the morning of her anniversary, to the day, she sat down at the kitchen table and began filling out her citizenship application, proud that she had waited the full 5 years like she believed she was supposed to. But here's what nobody told her. She could have filed that same application 3 months earlier. She had counted her weight perfectly and still counted it wrong. And that one small misunderstanding is one of a dozen quiet things that adds months, sometimes years, to the road to citizenship in this country. I am Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch, and I have walked a lot of families down this exact road. Today, I want to give you the real timeline to become a United States citizen in 2026 and beyond. Not the single number you get when you search it. The actual path, step by step, the mistakes that stretch it out, and the one thing you can do when your case gets stuck that most people never realize is even an option. Stay with me to the end for that last part because it is the piece that changes everything. Let us start where the clock actually starts because this is the first thing people get wrong. Your timeline does not begin the day you file. It begins years earlier, on the day you became a permanent resident. For most people, you become eligible to apply for citizenship after 5 years as a green card holder. If you're married to and living with a United States citizen, that drops to 3 years. That eligibility date is the real anchor of your entire timeline, and everything else is measured from it. And here's the part that Anna missed. You do not have to wait for that exact anniversary. The law lets you file your application up to 90 days before you reach your 5 or 3 years. You can file 90 days early. That is 90 days you never have to lose. Mark the date, count it back 90 days, and that's your true starting line. But before you file, you have to be sure you actually kept your eligibility because this is where strong candidates trip up. 2 requirements run underneath those years. The first is continuous residence, which means you kept the United States as your home the entire time. The second is physical presence, which means you were actually here for at least half of it, at least 30 months out of the 5 years or 18 months out of the 3. Here is the trap. A single trip abroad of a year or more can break your continuous residence and quietly reset your clock. So if you have a long trip in your past or one coming up, that is a conversation to have with an attorney before you file, not after. One long trip can reset the clock. There is one more thread running through those years, and it's called good moral character. For the period before you apply, usually those same 3 or 5 years, the government looks at your record. Certain things like some criminal issues or unpaid taxes, unpaid child support can delay or block an application. And none of this is meant to frighten you. Most people clear it easily. It's simply the part you want to look at honestly before you file instead of being surprised by it at the interview. So let's say you're eligible and you file. What does the actual path look like? You submit Form N-400. Within a few weeks or months, you get a receipt notice. A little while after that, you're called in for biometrics where they take your fingerprints. Then comes the long wait for the big appointment, the interview. At the interview, an officer reviews your application with you and you take 2 tests. An English test with checks that you can read, write, and speak basic English, and a civics test on American history and government. If you passed, and most prepared applicants do, you are scheduled for the final step, the oath ceremony, where you raise your right hand and you actually become a citizen. Now, the number you really came for. How long does all that take in 2026? As of early this year, the national average is running 8 months from filing to decision. But that average hides an enormous range. In some cities, people finish in under 3 months. In others, including parts of California, Florida, and Texas, it can stretch to 12 or 18 months or longer. So the honest answer is not one clean number. It is this. Budget the better part of a year, hope for less, and plan around the fact that where you live can matter as much as anything on your application. I need to flag one change that is catching people in 2026 because it's new. There is now an updated civics test. If you filed your application on or after October 20th of 2025, you take the newer version, which draws from a pool of 128 questions. The officer asks you 20 of them and you need 12 correct to pass. If you filed before that date, you take the older test drawn from a pool of 100 questions. And if you were older and held your green card for a long time, there are real accommodations built in. So the study guide you use should match the exact version you fall under. Don't study the wrong list. So why does a case stall in the first place? Sometimes it's a background check that takes some extra time to clear. Sometimes it's a request for more evidence where the officer needs one more document before deciding. Sometimes your name matches something in a database and a person has to clear it by hand. And often there's no dramatic reason at all, just an office that's badly backed up. Knowing that helps because a delay usually does not mean something is wrong with you. It means your file is waiting in a long line. Now, the part that I promised you, the part that matters most. What happens when your case just sits there past every estimate with no explanation? Most people do the only thing they can think to do. They wait. They refresh the website. They lose sleep. But waiting is not your only option, and this is the piece I want you to hear. Once your case passes the normal processing time for your office, you can open a formal inquiry with the Immigration Service asking what is happening. If that goes nowhere, you can ask your member of Congress to make an inquiry on your behalf, and their offices do this every single day. And if your case is truly stuck, unreasonably delayed, with no movement at all, there is a final tool, a lawsuit called a mandamus, which asks the federal judge to order the government to make a decision in your case. A stuck case is not a dead case. You have a ladder to climb, and most people never know it's there. So let's go back to Anna. In the version where she's prepared, she counts back the 90 days, files early instead of losing 3 months. She checks that long trip she took 2 years before it becomes a problem at the interview. She studies the right version of the civics test, and when her case stalls 4 months past her city's average, she does not just wait and worry. She opens an inquiry, and when that stalls, she climbs the ladder. Same applicant, same file, a road that is months shorter and far less frightening, simply because she knew where the clock started and what to do when it stopped. If this helped, watch my video on preparing for the citizenship interview and my video on the mistakes that can break continuous residence. If you're close to eligible and something in your history gives you pause, talk to an immigration attorney about your specific case before you file. I am Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch, and my team and I help immigrant families every day. Your citizenship is worth getting it right.